Story number 1. Silent Shoppers. Winter in Fort Worth, Texas, was always a deceptive time. The biting cold and early darkness contrasted sharply with the bright lights and bustling energy of the city's numerous shopping centers. My name is Jack Matthews, a seasoned investigative journalist with a knack for delving into the unsolved and the unexplained. When I first heard about the disappearance of Rachel Trelica and Renee Wilson, two young women who vanished without a trace from the Fort Worth shopping plaza on December 24, 1974, I knew I had stumbled upon a story that demanded attention. Rachel and Renee were typical teenagers, full of holiday spirit and excitement. They had come to the mall to buy Christmas gifts for their families, just like thousands of other shoppers that day. But by the time night fell, Rachel and Renee never made it back home. Their car was found abandoned in the parking lot, shopping bags still inside. But the girls were nowhere to be found. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Nothing. The disappearance quickly became one of the largest mysteries in Texas history, baffling authorities and haunting the community. Driven by curiosity and a sense of duty to uncover the truth, I decided to retrace their steps. Armed with old police reports, interviews with former employees, and hours of research, I set out to explore the now-defunct Fort Worth shopping plaza, which had since been torn down and replaced by a modern complex. The site where the mall once stood had been left untouched, a frozen monument to the tragedy that occurred decades ago. I arrived on a chilly December morning, the landscape still marked by the remnants of the old mall. The parking lot where Rachel and Renee's car had been found was now overgrown with weeds, nature reclaiming what once was a hub of human activity. As I stood there, memories of bustling crowds and festive decorations seemed to echo in the empty space. Determined to leave no stone unturned, I began my investigation. My first stop was the local library, where I pored over newspaper archives and police records. The reports from 1974 were sparse but haunting. Neighbors had reported seeing Rachel and Renee enter the mall around 3 p.m., their laughter and chatter adding to the holiday cheer. But as the day progressed, their presence seemed to fade until they simply vanished. The police had launched extensive searches, scouring the mall and surrounding areas, but nothing had been found. It was as if the girls had been swallowed by the very shadows of the mall. Intrigued by the lack of evidence, I decided to visit the site at night, hoping to experience any lingering energies or unexplained phenomena firsthand. Armed with a flashlight, camera, and a recorder, I made my way to the abandoned parking lot. The moon cast an eerie glow over the area, and the wind whispered through the empty space, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. As I set up my equipment, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to dance with a life of their own. I began recording, hoping to capture any unusual sounds or sights. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. Just as I was about to give up and leave, I heard it, a faint, melodic giggle, like that of children playing. My heart raced as I scanned the area, trying to locate the source of the sound. The giggle faded, replaced by a soft whisper. "Help us!" The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I froze, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. The temperature dropped further, my breath visible in the frigid air. Shadows deepened, and I felt an invisible presence watching me, their eyes burning with an unspoken plea. Gathering my courage, I followed the whispers, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The sound led me to the edge of the parking lot, where the remains of a broken fountain stood. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, and the shadows coalesced into the faint outline of two young women, Rachel and Renee. Their forms were translucent, their eyes hollow and desperate. "Why can't we go home?" Rachel's voice echoed, her face etched with sorrow. "We're lost." Renee reached out, her hand passing through the cold air, leaving no mark. "Please, help us find our way." I stood there, paralyzed by fear and empathy, as the apparitions faded into the misty night. The whispers turned into mournful sighs, lingering in the air long after the girls had vanished. Determined to help them, I delved deeper into the history of the mall, uncovering stories of strange occurrences and unexplained events that had plagued the shopping center long before the girls' disappearance. Former employees spoke of flickering lights, mannequins changing positions on their own, and a persistent feeling of being watched. Some even claimed to hear faint cries echoing through the halls late at night. The mall had been a place of joy and commerce, but beneath its festive exterior lay a darkness that had driven the girls to their untimely fate. One name kept coming up in my research, an obscure developer named Victor Hargrove, who had built the mall with a vision of grandeur but was rumored to dabble in the occult. According to local lore, Hargrove believed that the mall could be a portal to another realm, a gateway to the unknown. His fascination with the supernatural had led to numerous strange rituals and secret chambers hidden within the mall's infrastructure. As I pieced together the clues, I realized that the disappearance of Rachel and Renee was no ordinary case. It was intertwined with the mall's dark history and the enigmatic practices of its creator. Determined to uncover the truth, I sought out the abandoned parts of the mall, now overtaken by nature but still holding secrets beneath the snow and ice. One night, armed with my camera and recorder, I ventured into the old underground tunnels that had once been part of the mall's extensive network. The tunnels were dark and claustrophobic, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. As I navigated the winding passages, I felt a growing sense of unease, the walls seeming to close in around me. The whispers returned, guiding me deeper into the heart of the labyrinth. Finally, I reached a sealed door, its surface covered in arcane symbols and sigils. My heart pounded as I examined the markings, realizing they were part of a ritual designed to open a portal. With a deep breath, I began to chant the words I had deciphered from Hargrove's journals, my voice echoing through the tunnel. The door began to shimmer, the symbols glowing with an otherworldly light as the portal slowly opened. A vortex of mist and shadows spilled forth, and the apparitions of Rachel and Renee emerged once more, their eyes filled with hope and gratitude. "You did it," Rachel whispered, her voice a balm to my weary soul. "You set us free." The portal pulsed, drawing the shadows back into the unknown realm, and the girls faded into the light. The whispers ceased, replaced by a profound silence that spoke of peace and closure. As the last remnants of the portal dissolved, I knew that the mystery of their disappearance had finally been resolved. Exhausted but fulfilled, I made my way back to the surface, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The Fort Worth shopping plaza stood silent and still, its dark secrets now laid bare. The disappearance of Rachel Trelika and Renee Wilson had been more than a tragic accident. It was a tale of supernatural forces and the enduring power of remembrance. Years have passed since that fateful expedition, but the memory of Rachel and Renee remains vivid in my mind. The story of their disappearance serves as a chilling reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown, and the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows. My investigation into the silent shoppers of Fort Worth became a testament to the power of truth and the importance of honoring those who have been lost to the darkness. Sometimes, when the winter winds howl and the snow begins to fall, I can almost hear the faint echoes of Rachel and Renee's voices, a haunting melody carried on the breeze. Their spirits continue to watch over the land they once called home. Their whispers a reminder that some mysteries are never truly forgotten, but remembered through the stories we tell and the truths we seek. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, the echoes of Rachel Trelika and Renee Wilson continue to resonate, forever part of the Fort Worth landscape, waiting for someone to listen and remember their story. Story number 2. Whispers of the Silent Night. Winter in Canada is a time when the nights grow long and the cold bites deep, turning ordinary days into a monochrome landscape of white and shadows. My name is David Collins, and I work as a security consultant for retail establishments. In 2013, I was hired by Maplewood Toys, a beloved local toy store in my hometown of Edmonton, to enhance their nighttime security measures. Little did I know that my work would lead me into a nightmare that would forever change my perception of reality. Maplewood Toys had been a staple in the community for decades, known for its extensive selection of toys and its warm, inviting atmosphere. The store was particularly magical during the holiday season, with elaborate decorations, twinkling lights, and the ever-present figure of Santa Claus greeting children and their parents. However, beneath the cheerful exterior lay a dark history that few were willing to discuss openly. The incident that brought me to Maplewood Toys occurred on the night of December 24th, 2013. The store had closed its doors for the evening, and I was there to install additional security cameras and upgrade the alarm systems. As I walked through the dimly lit aisles, my footsteps echoing softly against the polished floors, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air was thick with the scent of pine and cinnamon, remnants of the day's festivities lingering in the shadows. I set up my equipment near the main entrance, ensuring that every corner of the store was covered. As I worked, I reviewed the old security footage from previous years, noticing an unusual pattern. Every Christmas Eve, there were brief moments when the footage showed a figure dressed as Santa Claus moving silently through the store. Yet no one ever saw them in person. The figure was always captured on camera as a blurry, white silhouette, slipping between the shelves with an unnatural grace. Curiosity piqued. I decided to investigate further. I approached the manager, Mrs. Thompson, a kindly woman in her 60s with a penchant for storytelling. "Mrs. Thompson, can you tell me more about these nighttime sightings of Santa?" She hesitated, her eyes clouding over with memories. "It's something we've never been able to explain, David. Every year, on Christmas Eve, someone dressed as Santa seems to appear and vanish without a trace. Some say it's the spirit of a man who lost his life here long ago, unable to move on." I nodded, sensing the weight of her words. "Do you know anything about what happened to him?" Mrs. Thompson sighed, her gaze distant. "Many years ago, there was a tragic incident on Christmas Eve. A young father, overwhelmed by grief after losing his child, took his own life in the store. Since then, his spirit has been seen wandering these aisles, searching for his lost one." I felt a chill run down my spine, the story resonating with the eerie images captured on camera. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to spend the night alone in the store, monitoring the security footage in real time. As midnight approached, the store fell into an unsettling silence. The only sounds were the distant hum of the refrigeration units and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. I sat in front of the monitors, eyes scanning the screens for any sign of movement. The clock ticked steadily, each second stretching into eternity. At exactly 11:59 p.m., a sudden drop in temperature swept through the store. My breath became visible, and the lights flickered ominously. My heart raced as I glanced up at the main entrance monitor. There, in the doorway, stood the figure of Santa Claus, his white suit shimmering in the low light. He moved slowly, almost gliding, as he made his way deeper into the store. I reached for my walkie-talkie, my voice barely a whisper. "Mrs. Thompson, we have an anomaly on the cameras. I'm going to investigate." She responded with a shaky voice. "Be careful, David. Whatever he's looking for, he hasn't found it yet." I grabbed my flashlight and made my way toward the entrance, each step echoing loudly in the empty store. The figure of Santa seemed to sense my presence. Turning to face me, his eyes, hollow and filled with sorrow, met mine. "Why are you here?" he whispered, his voice carrying a mournful weight. "I want to help you," I replied, my voice trembling. "What happened here? Why can't you move on?" He reached out a translucent hand, and the room around us began to blur, shifting into a scene from the past. I found myself transported back to that tragic Christmas Eve in 1974. The store was bustling with holiday shoppers, laughter filling the air. In the midst of the crowd stood a young man, his face twisted in anguish as he held a photo of his child, tears streaming down his cheeks. Desperation overcame him as he stumbled toward the counter, clutching the photo tightly. "Please, help me," he cried, his voice breaking. "I can't live without her." The scene took a dark turn as the man, overwhelmed by grief, pulled out a knife and began to threaten the terrified customers. Panic erupted, the cheerful atmosphere turning into chaos and fear. I watched in horror as the man took his own life in a fit of despair, his spirit forever trapped in the store, unable to find peace. The vision faded, and I found myself back in the present, standing face to face with the spectral Santa. "I can't let go," he whispered, his eyes pleading. "I'm searching for my child, but she's gone." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his sorrow. "I can help you find peace. Let me help you move on." The temperature dropped further as I extended a hand toward him. "What do you need?" His form flickered, and the ghostly figure began to dissolve, his presence fading into the cold air. "Remember us," he whispered. "Remember our stories, so we are never forgotten." As the last remnants of his spirit vanished, the store felt warmer, the oppressive chill lifting, the lights steadied, and the eerie silence was replaced by a sense of calm. I knew that by acknowledging his pain and ensuring his story was told, I had helped him find the peace he so desperately sought. The following morning, I met with Mrs. Thompson, sharing my experience and the truth behind the nightly apparitions. Together, we decided to honor the memory of the lost father by dedicating a small memorial within the store, a place where visitors could pay their respects and remember the tragic events that had unfolded decades ago. News of the haunting spread, attracting paranormal enthusiasts and curious visitors alike. Maplewood Toys became not just a place of joy and wonder, but also a site of remembrance and reflection. The presence of Santa Claus was no longer seen as a malevolent spirit but as a guardian of memories, ensuring that the lost would never be forgotten. Years later, I still visit Maplewood Toys, especially during the holiday season. The store thrives, its legacy enriched by the stories of those who came before. The spirit of the lost father remains a part of the store's history, a haunting reminder of the thin line between joy and sorrow, life and death. Sometimes, late at night, when the snow falls softly outside and the store is quiet, I can still hear the faint whispers of lost souls, their voices blending with the sounds of Christmas cheer. The shadows seem to dance in the glow of the lights, and the figure of Santa Claus stands watch, a silent sentinel guarding the memories of those who once walked these aisles. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the festive lights and the silent whispers, the echoes of Maplewood Toys continue to resonate, forever a part of the stories that bind us together, ensuring that the lost are remembered and their spirits find peace. Story number 3. Ornaments of the Damned. Winter in London has a way of cloaking the city in an almost magical stillness. The streets are lined with twinkling lights, and the scent of mulled wine wafts through the air, mingling with the crisp chill. My name is Thomas Bennett, and I work at Yuletide Wonders, a charming Christmas decoration store nestled in the heart of Camden Market. What was once a festive haven has become the setting of my most terrifying experiences. Experiences that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. I've always loved the holiday season, the warmth of the lights, the joy of finding the perfect ornament, and the camaraderie among fellow enthusiasts. But last December, something changed. It began subtly, with small accidents that I initially dismissed as mere coincidences or the result of my own clumsiness. It was the first week of December when the first incident occurred. I was arranging a display of delicate glass baubles near the front window. As I reached for a particularly intricate ornament, my hand slipped, and it shattered into 1,000 sparkling pieces on the floor. The glass glittered innocently under the store lights, but the look of frustration on my face was anything but festive. I spent the next hour meticulously cleaning every shard, the frustration mounting with each broken ornament. The next day, A customer returned, claiming that a wreath she had purchased had fallen from the wall by itself the night before. I assured her it must have been poorly secured and offered to exchange it. But as I inspected the wreath, I noticed something peculiar, tiny, almost imperceptible scratches etched into the wood, forming strange symbols that sent a shiver down my spine. Things escalated quickly. By mid-December, ornaments began breaking with alarming frequency. No matter how carefully I handled them, each one seemed cursed to meet an untimely end. Customers started to voice their concerns, whispering about the store's eerie atmosphere and the inexplicable mishaps. I tried to maintain a cheerful demeanor, but the growing list of complaints gnawed at me. One evening, after closing time, I stayed behind to restock some shelves. The store was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the city outside. As I worked, I heard it, a faint, playful giggle echoing through the aisles. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No response. I shrugged it off, attributing it to my imagination and the stress of the past few weeks. But the laughter continued, growing louder and more distinct. It sounded almost like that of children, yet there was an unsettling edge to it. I glanced around, but the store was empty. Unease settled over me as I felt a chill run down my spine. The lights flickered, and shadows danced unnaturally across the walls. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, swift, deliberate steps approaching from the far end of the store. I turned to see a figure standing in the middle of the display area, shrouded in darkness. It was a man, tall and imposing, dressed in a vintage Santa Claus suit. His face was obscured by the brim of his hat, but his presence was undeniably malevolent. "Why do you destroy our home?" he whispered, his voice a raspy echo that reverberated through the store. I took a step back, my mind racing to comprehend what I was witnessing. I don't know what you mean," I stammered, trying to keep my composure. "I'm just trying to run the store." He advanced slowly, his movements unnaturally smooth. "This is not just a store," he intoned, his voice growing louder. "This is a sanctuary, a sacred place. You have desecrated it with your negligence." Panic surged through me as I turned to flee, but the entrance seemed to disappear, the store morphing into an endless maze of glittering decorations and broken ornaments. The laughter and whispers swirled around me, a cacophony of lost souls trapped within the confines of Yuletide wonders. Desperate, I reached for my phone, intending to call for help, but it slipped from my grasp and shattered on the floor, the screen splintering into tiny pieces. The Santa figure loomed closer, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You cannot leave," he declared. "You must make amends." I backed into a corner, the walls closing in as the shadows thickened. The ornaments around me began to move, twinkling lights transforming into ghostly apparitions that reached out with translucent hands. "Restore what you have broken," the figure commanded, his voice echoing in my mind. "Only then can peace return." Trembling, I realized that the symbols I had seen on the wreath were part of a ritual, a way to honor and appease the spirits bound to the store. I needed to understand their meaning and rectify my mistakes. Summoning every ounce of courage, I pulled out the journal I had found weeks earlier, Victor Hargrove's Guide to Festive Preservation, an obscure manual that had promised to help store owners create the most enchanting displays. Flipping through the pages, I found the section on protective symbols and their significance. The scratches on the wreath matched the illustrations perfectly. They were ancient symbols meant to guard against malevolent forces and ensure the harmony of the festive spirit. Realizing my oversight in neglecting these precautions, I began to meticulously recreate the symbols on the broken ornaments and wreaths, chanting the incantations written in the journal. As I worked, the atmosphere in the store began to shift. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a warm, golden light that filled the space. The apparitions of lost souls faded, their presence now peaceful and content. The Santa figure watched silently, his expression softening as the symbols took hold. "You have done well," he whispered, his voice now filled with gratitude. May your store be a beacon of joy and remembrance. With a final nod, he dissolved into the light, leaving me alone in the restored sanctuary of Yuletide wonders. The broken ornaments were now whole again, each symbol glowing with a protective energy that seemed to infuse the entire store. Exhausted but relieved, I knew that the spirits had been appeased and that peace had been restored. The following morning, the store opened to a crowd of delighted customers, unaware of the supernatural ordeal that had unfolded the night before. The atmosphere was festive and joyful, the decorations more vibrant and enchanting than ever. I shared my experience with Mrs. Thompson, the store's owner, who listened with a mixture of disbelief and concern. We must never forget the importance of tradition and respect, I told her. These decorations are more than just ornaments. They're a connection to the past and the spirits that watch over us. Mrs. Thompson nodded solemnly, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. We will honor their memory, ensure that our store remains a place of joy and harmony. As the years passed, Yuletide Wonders became renowned not only for its exquisite decorations, but also for the stories of its haunted past and the spirits that had been set free. Customers would often comment on the store's unique ambience, a perfect blend of festive cheer and an underlying sense of history and reverence. I continued to work at the store, each holiday season bringing new challenges and rewards. The experience taught me the importance of balance, celebrating the joy of the season while honoring the memories of those who had been lost. The haunted decorations were now protected by the symbols and rituals that had saved us, ensuring that the spirits would never return to haunt us again. But sometimes, late at night, when the store is quiet and the lights dim, I can still hear the faint echoes of laughter and footsteps, a gentle reminder of the night when the ornaments truly came to life. The shadows dance in the corners, their presence now benign and watchful, guarding the harmony of Yuletide wonders. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the twinkling lights and the silent snow, the spirits of the past continue to resonate, forever part of the festive magic that fills the air, waiting for someone to remember their stories and honor their legacy. Story number 4. Eyes of the Damned. Winter in New York City brings a unique kind of magic. The twinkling lights, the scent of pine and cinnamon, and the bustling crowds create an atmosphere of joy and anticipation. My name is Michael Turner, and I work at Holiday Treasures, a charming little gift shop nestled in the heart of Manhattan. For years, I've loved the festive season, the decorations, the cheerful customers, and the camaraderie among my coworkers. But last December, something happened that transformed my love for the holidays into a nightmare I can never escape. It started innocently enough. In early December, the store decided to invest in a new line of Christmas decorations, aiming to attract more customers with unique and exquisite ornaments. Among the new additions was a set of antique glass baubles sourced from a vintage collector in upstate New York. One particular bauble stood out, a beautifully crafted doll dressed as Santa Claus, its eyes a deep, unsettling shade of green that seemed almost alive. At first, no one noticed anything unusual about the doll. It was placed prominently in the glass display window, catching the light and drawing the eyes of passers-by. Customers admired its intricate details, and it quickly became one of the store's bestsellers. However, soon after its arrival, subtle changes began to occur. One evening, as I was closing up the store, I heard the faint sound of giggling emanating from the display window, thinking it was just the wind or perhaps a child's laughter from the nearby streets. I dismissed it and continued my duties. But the next night, the giggling returned, louder and more distinct. My heart raced as I approached the window, only to see the doll sitting motionless, its eyes seemingly following me as I walked past. I tried to shake off the unease, attributing it to the stress of the season, but things escalated quickly. Several customers reported that the doll's eyes moved when they looked away, and some even claimed to see the doll's shadow moving independently within the glass. One elderly lady insisted that the doll was staring directly at her, filling her with an inexplicable sense of dread. The final straw came one night when I was alone in the store. The lights began to flicker, casting eerie shadows across the room. The temperature dropped suddenly, and I could see my breath in the frigid air. The doll in the display started to shimmer, its eyes glowing faintly. Then, I heard footsteps echoing through the empty aisles. My heart pounded as I followed the sound, flashlight in hand, trying to locate the source. As I approached the display window, the doll began to move, its glass frame creaking under the strain. Its eyes locked onto mine, and a sinister smile formed on its porcelain face. I stumbled back, knocking over a stack of ornaments that crashed to the floor with a deafening roar. The room plunged into darkness as the power went out, leaving me in complete blackness except for the faint glow of the doll's eyes. Desperate to escape, I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers began then, soft, haunting voices that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. "Stay with us," they murmured. "Join our eternal celebration." Panic surged through me as the doll's laughter filled the room, its voice blending with the whispers into a cacophony of madness. I remembered the store's history, how it had once been the site of a tragic accident years ago. A fire had broken out during a busy holiday season, claiming the lives of several employees and customers. Some believed that the spirits of those lost were still lingering, trapped within the walls of holiday treasures. Could this doll be a vessel for their restless souls? Determined to break the curse, I delved into the store's archives, searching for any information that could help me. I discovered old newspaper clippings and personal journals from the victims, all of which hinted at a dark presence that had haunted the store since the fire. The doll, I realized, was not just an ordinary ornament, it was an anchor for the spirits, a conduit for their unresolved anguish and pain. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the store the next night, prepared to confront the supernatural force. I brought with me the journals and a candle, hoping to perform a ritual of remembrance to honor the lost souls and set them free. As midnight approached, the store grew colder, the shadows deeper, and the whispers louder. I placed the journals around the display window and lit the candle, its warm light contrasting sharply with the icy gloom. "We honor your memory," I began, my voice trembling but steady. "We remember your lives and the joy you brought to this place. May you find peace and move on." The doll's eyes blazed with an intense light, and the room seemed to vibrate with energy. The whispers crescendoed into a unified chant, a sorrowful melody that resonated with the very core of my being. The candle flickered, casting dancing shadows that intertwined with the spirit's presence. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind swept through the store, extinguishing the candle and plunging me into darkness once more. The doll began to levitate, its glass frame shattering as ethereal light enveloped the room. The spirits manifested around me, their forms translucent and shimmering, their eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "Thank you," they whispered in unison, their voices now calm and serene. "You have set us free." With those final words, the spirits dissipated, leaving behind a profound silence and a warm, comforting glow that filled the store. The doll, now nothing more than broken glass on the floor, lay in shattered pieces, its malevolent presence extinguished. The next morning, the store opened to a bright and cheerful day. Customers walked in, unaware of the horrors that had unfolded the night before. The atmosphere was festive and joyful, the decorations more vibrant than ever. Mrs. Thompson, the store's owner, approached me with tears in her eyes. "You did it, Michael. You brought peace to this place." I nodded, still shaken by the experience but feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. The curse of holiday treasures had been lifted, and the spirits of the lost could finally rest in peace. The doll was removed and placed in a memorial garden dedicated to those who had perished in the fire, a place where their memories could be honored and cherished. Years have passed since that fateful December, but the memory of those nights remains vivid in my mind. The story of the haunted doll became a legend in the community, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between our world and the supernatural. Holiday Treasures continued to thrive, its legacy enriched by the tales of redemption and remembrance. Sometimes, when I walk past the memorial garden, I can almost hear the faint echoes of laughter and the soft whispers of gratitude carried by the wind. The spirits of the lost still linger in the memories of those who remember, their presence a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the importance of honoring those who have been forgotten. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the twinkling lights and the silent snow, the echoes of the past continue to resonate, forever part of the stories that bind us together, ensuring that the lost are remembered and their spirits find peace. Story number 5. Whispers in the Frost. Christmas in Colorado was always a magical time. The snow-covered mountains glistened under the winter sun, and the bustling shopping centers were adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations. My name is Mark Davis, and I've lived in Denver my entire life. But nothing could have prepared me for the chilling encounter that turned a joyous holiday season into a nightmare I still can't forget. It was December 24th, 1995. A cold Friday evening. The air was crisp, and the streets were alive with shoppers scurrying to complete their holiday purchases. I had spent the afternoon at the Evergreen Mall, buying gifts for my family and enjoying the festive atmosphere. By early evening, I was ready to head home, laden with bags and eager to start preparing for Christmas. Parking at Evergreen Mall was always a hassle, especially on Christmas Eve. The sprawling parking lot was filled with cars, all vying for the perfect spot. After circling several times, I finally found a space near the far end of the lot. The lot was quieter here, the hum of conversation and laughter from inside the mall fading as I moved away from the entrance. I approached my car, a silver sedan, and began unloading the bags. The sky was darkening, the first snowflakes of the season beginning to fall, creating a soft, white blanket over the ground. The streetlights cast long shadows, and the muffled sounds of the city seemed distant and surreal in the heavy snowfall. As I reached for my keys, I noticed a figure standing a few feet away from my car. At first, I thought it was just another shopper, but as I looked closer, I realized it was a woman. She was dressed in a striking red coat, her long hair cascading over her shoulders. Her presence was out of place amidst the ordinary crowd of shoppers. What struck me most was her eyes, deep, piercing blue that seemed to look right through me. "Excuse me," I called out, attempting to sound casual. "Can I help you?" She didn't respond. Instead, she turned slowly, her movements almost fluid, gliding across the snow without leaving any footprints. I felt a shiver run down my spine, the cold air making my skin crawl. There was something unnerving about her, something that made me uneasy. "Are you okay?" I asked again, taking a step closer. Still no response. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching me, her gaze unwavering. I tried to shrug it off, assuming she might be lost or confused. But before I could say anything else, she vanished into thin air, as if swallowed by the falling snow and the encroaching darkness. My heart pounded in my chest. I rubbed my temples, trying to calm myself. Was it a hallucination? Maybe someone had dressed up for the holidays and decided to surprise unsuspecting shoppers. But there was something too deliberate about her appearance and disappearance to be a mere prank. Shaking off the encounter, I locked my car and began to walk to my apartment building, which was a short distance away. The parking lot felt eerily empty, the silence broken only by the soft crunch of snow under my boots. The lights from the buildings cast ghostly reflections on the wet pavement, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. As I walked, I couldn't help but glance back over my shoulder, half expecting to see her standing there again. But there was nothing, only the swirling snow and the deepening night quickened my pace, eager to put some distance between myself and the strange woman in the red coat. When I finally reached my building, I unlocked the door and hurried inside, the warmth of the lobby a stark contrast to the cold outside. I made my way up to my apartment, the events of the evening replaying in my mind. It felt like something out of a ghost story, something that couldn't possibly be real. That night, I barely slept. The image of her piercing blue eyes haunted my dreams, a silent specter lurking in the shadows of my subconscious. The next morning, I tried to brush it off as a figment of my imagination, perhaps a product of the stress and exhaustion from holiday shopping. But deep down, I knew there was something more to it. A few weeks later, as Christmas approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Small things began to happen, objects slightly out of place, lights flickering inexplicably, and distant sounds of footsteps echoing through the empty parking lot. My anxiety grew, and I found myself avoiding the mall altogether, too afraid of encountering her again. One chilly December evening, I decided to confront my fears head-on. I returned to the Evergreen Mall, this time with a friend, Sarah, who had always been skeptical of my story but agreed to accompany me for support. As we navigated the familiar paths of the parking lot, the snow continued to fall, thickening the already white expanse. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, her breath visible in the cold air. "I need to see if there's any explanation," I replied, my voice wavering slightly. "Maybe there's something I missed." We reached the spot where I had first seen her, the far end of the parking lot now even more desolate. The snowflakes danced around us, creating a silent, serene backdrop. As we stood there, the temperature seemed to drop even further, and the shadows grew deeper, merging with the darkness. Suddenly, a soft giggle echoed through the air, sending chills down my spine. I turned to look around, but there was no one in sight. Just as I was about to dismiss it, the woman in the red coat appeared once more, her figure silhouetted against the falling snow. This time, she stood directly in front of us, her eyes locked onto mine. "Why are you following me?" I demanded, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't respond. Instead, she extended her hand, pointing toward the parking lot. Confused and frightened, I glanced at Sarah, who was visibly shaken. We stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Before I could react, the snow began to swirl violently, creating a blinding white vortex that enveloped us. The world around us distorted, the sounds of the city fading into a deafening silence. The temperature plummeted further, my breath visible in the icy air as I struggled to move. The woman's voice echoed in my mind, a haunting melody that sent shivers through my entire being. "Find us," she whispered. "Help us." The vision shifted, transporting me back to that tragic night in 1995. I saw the mall bustling with holiday shoppers, the joy and excitement filling the air. But beneath the surface, there was a darkness that threatened to consume everything. The woman in the red coat was there, a symbol of loss and despair, her presence a constant reminder of the fragility of happiness. I watched in horror as the events unfolded. Accidents, disappearances, and the overwhelming sense of dread that gripped the mall. The woman in the red coat was both a witness and a victim, her spirit forever bound to the place where she met her untimely end. The realization hit me hard. She wasn't just a ghost. She was a manifestation of the mall's darkest secrets, a protector of memories that refused to fade. As the vision faded, I found myself back in the present, the snowstorm intensifying around me. The woman in the red coat stood before us once more, her eyes filled with an eternal sorrow. "Remember us," she implored, her voice echoing through the chaos. "Never forget our stories." The snowstorm began to calm, the winds subsiding as quickly as they had risen. The woman in the red coat slowly faded, her presence leaving behind a lingering sense of peace and a renewed sense of purpose within me. Sarah and I stood there, the snow falling gently around us, our hearts heavy with the weight of what we had experienced. We knew that the woman in the red coat and the lost souls of Evergreen Mall needed our help to move on, to have their stories remembered and honored. In the days that followed, I delved deeper into the mall's history, uncovering forgotten stories and long-buried secrets. I spoke with former employees, piecing together the tragic events that had unfolded on that fateful Christmas Eve. The mall had been a place of joy and celebration, but it had also been the site of unspeakable horrors that had left scars on the souls of those who had been there. Determined to help, I organized a memorial event at the site where the mall once stood, inviting the community to remember and honor the lives lost in the tragedy. The event was heartfelt, a poignant reminder of the importance of compassion and remembrance. As we gathered around a symbolic tree adorned with lights and ornaments, I felt a presence watching over us. The spirit of the woman in the red coat finally finding peace in our collective memory. That Christmas, the snow fell gently, covering the remnants of Evergreen Mall in a soft, white blanket. The haunting echoes of the past had been silenced, replaced by a sense of closure and hope. The legend of the mysterious woman in the red coat lived on, not as a symbol of fear, but as a testament to the enduring power of memory and the importance of never forgetting those who have been lost. Years later, I still visit the site, now transformed into a beautiful park that honors the memory of Evergreen Mall and its lost souls. The stories of Rachel and Renee, and the enigmatic woman in the red coat, continue to resonate, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a path to healing and peace. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, the echoes of the past continue to resonate, forever a part of the story. Number 6. The Devil's Gift. Winter in Chicago was always a time of stark contrasts. The bustling streets, adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations, masked the chill that seeped into every corner of the city. My name is Emily Carter, and what was supposed to be a joyful Christmas season turned into a nightmare I can't escape. It was late November when I decided to visit Timeless Treasures, a quaint antique shop nestled in a quiet neighborhood. I loved the thrill of finding unique pieces with stories etched into their very existence. As I wandered through aisles of old furniture, vintage ornaments, and forgotten memorabilia, something caught my eye: a beautifully crafted Christmas gift box. It was nestled among a collection of old holiday decorations, its exterior adorned with intricate carvings and faded red ribbon. Intrigued, I picked up the box, feeling an odd mix of excitement and unease. It was heavier than it looked, and the air around it seemed to grow colder. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with piercing blue eyes, watched me intently. "Ah, you have a keen eye," she said, her voice soft yet commanding. "That box has a unique history. It's said to bring unexpected surprises to those who open it." I smiled, charmed by her words. "I think it would make a lovely addition to my Christmas decorations." She nodded, handing me the box with a knowing smile. "Take good care of it." I paid for the box and left the shop, the winter air crisp against my face. As I drove home, the city lights blurred through the falling snow, creating a mesmerizing dance of shadows and illumination. Once inside my cozy apartment, I carefully placed the box on my mantel, admiring its craftsmanship. That evening, as I prepared for bed, I couldn't shake the curiosity that nagged at me. The box seemed to call out, inviting me to uncover its secrets. The air around me grew colder. The room dimmed as the lights flickered slightly. My heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. Unable to resist, I reached for the box. As my fingers touched the delicate ribbon, pungent, foul odor wafted through the room, making my stomach churn. The smell was overwhelming, a rancid mix that filled my nostrils and clung to my clothes. Ignoring the revulsion, I untied the ribbon and carefully lifted the lid. Inside, I found a tangled mass of dark, matted hair and a yellowed piece of parchment. My hands trembled as I picked up the letter, the paper brittle and fragile. "You should not have opened this box." A chill ran down my spine. My mind raced to make sense of the cryptic message. I quickly set the box aside, feeling an oppressive weight settle in the room. Determined to rid myself of the ominous package, I grabbed it and carried it outside, hurrying to throw it in the trash. That night, sleep eluded me, My mind replayed the tragic images of the mysterious box, the unsettling letter, and the dreadful smell that lingered in my senses. As midnight approached, I decided to call it a night, hoping the morning would bring clarity. Around 2 a.m., I was awakened by the sound of soft knocking. My heart pounded as I sat up, straining to listen. The knocking was persistent, coming from my front door. I froze, fear gripping me. Remembering the box, I wondered if it was somehow connected. Summoning my courage, I grabbed my flashlight and approached the door cautiously. The cold air nipped at my skin as I opened the door to find nothing but swirling snow and an impenetrable darkness. Shaken, I closed the door and returned to my bed, the sense of unease deepening. Minutes later, the knocking resumed, louder and more insistent. I grabbed the flashlight again and peered outside, but the snow obscured any sign of movement. Determined to confront whatever was causing the disturbance, I stepped into the blizzard, the cold biting through my layers. The footprints I followed were large, unlike any humans, leading into the heart of the storm. Each step was a battle against the swirling snow and the freezing wind, but something compelled me to follow them. As I trudged through the whiteout, the storm seemed to close in around me, the world becoming a blur of white and gray. The footprints led me to a secluded grove where the trees stood like silent guardians, their branches heavy with snow. In the center stood a circle of stones, ancient and weathered, surrounding a makeshift altar. The atmosphere was thick with a palpable sense of dread, the air humming with unseen energy. In the center of the circle lay remnants of a tragic event, discarded tools, torn clothing, and personal items left behind in their final moments. My flashlight flickered, casting intermittent light on the scene, when suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of my vision. I turned sharply, but there was nothing, only the swirling snow and the oppressive darkness. A chill enveloped me as I heard whispers carried by the wind, voices lost in time, pleading for help. The temperature plummeted, my breath visible in the frigid air as the whispers grew louder. More desperate. "Help us," they cried, their voices echoing through the grove. "Save us." Panic surged through me as the shadows seemed to take shape, forming into ghostly apparitions of the lost. Their hollow eyes stared into mine, filled with sorrow and an eternal longing for peace. One figure stepped forward, a woman with tear-streaked cheeks and hollow eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "We are trapped, bound by our suffering. Release us." I stumbled back, the weight of their anguish pressing down on me. "How?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. "How can I help you?" The apparitions moved closer, their presence overwhelming. "Remember our story," the woman implored. "Honor our memory. Let our tale be a warning, a reminder of the darkness that lies within human desperation." As the night deepened, the apparitions faded, the grove returning to its desolate silence. The storm began to ease, the oppressive energy lifting as if acknowledging my promise. I made my way back to my apartment, the footprints no longer leading into the storm but pointing towards the path I had come from. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I returned to my research, the night's events etched into my memory. The encounter had changed me, deepening my understanding of the tragic event and the haunting presence that lingered at that secluded grove. I realized that the suffering was not just a historical event but a lingering curse, a supernatural force that bound their souls to the frozen landscape. In the days that followed, I delved deeper into the archives, uncovering more about the tragic event and the possible supernatural elements that had plagued the area. Stories of strange lights, eerie sounds, and unexplainable phenomena had always been part of the legend. But now they took on a new, more terrifying dimension. Determined to honor their memory and break the curse, I organized a memorial at the grove, inviting locals and descendants of the lost to participate. We erected a cairn of stones, each one representing a lost soul, and shared stories of their bravery and suffering. As we lit candles around the cairn, the air seemed to grow warmer, the oppressive chill lifting as if the spirits were finally finding peace. That night, the storm was calm, the wind gentle as it whispered through the trees. I sat by the fire, the flickering flames casting comforting shadows, and felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the lost souls had been heard, their voices no longer lost in the storm but remembered and honored by those who came after. Years have passed since that harrowing winter, but the memory of the lost souls and the supernatural encounter remain vivid in my mind. The story of their tragic journey serves as a chilling reminder of the thin line between survival and madness, and the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Sometimes, when the wind howls through the trees and the snow begins to fall, I can almost hear their whispers carried on the breeze, a haunting melody that speaks of lost souls and the eternal quest for peace. The shadows linger, forever intertwined with the frozen landscape, waiting for someone to listen and remember their story. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, the echoes of the lost souls continue to resonate, a testament to the darkness that can consume us all and the hope that keeps us fighting to survive. Story number 7. Echoes in the Basement. Winter in Munich was a time of both beauty and darkness. The festive lights adorned every street, casting a warm glow over the snow-covered cobblestones. My name is Lucas Fischer, and I've worked at the renowned Kaufhaus am Marienplatz for over a decade. The store was a marvel, a labyrinth of luxury goods, seasonal decorations, and endless aisles that seemed to stretch into eternity. But beneath its glittering surface lay a history tainted by tragedy, a secret that resurfaced one cold Christmas night in 2008. It was December 24th, 2008, a night when the store was bustling with last-minute shoppers eager to find the perfect gifts. The air was thick with the scent of pine and cinnamon, the sounds of laughter and conversation blending seamlessly with the cheerful Christmas music playing over the speakers. As the evening wore on, the festive atmosphere reached its peak, with families enjoying their holiday shopping sprees. Around 9 p.m., the store was preparing to close early due to a sudden snowstorm warning. The manager, Frau Schneider, made the announcement, urging everyone to finish their purchases and make their way to the exits. Most shoppers complied without hesitation, eager to reach the warmth of their homes. However, a few remained, engrossed in their final transactions. I was restocking the seasonal decorations in the main floor when I heard it, a blood-curdling scream echoing from the basement. The sound was so intense it sent shivers down my spine, momentarily freezing me in place. My heart pounded as I exchanged a worried glance with my coworker, Anna Muller. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the background noise. Anna nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to check it out. It could be someone stuck or—" Before she could finish, another scream pierced the air, even more desperate and heart-wrenching. Panic surged through me. I knew the store's basement was rarely accessed, reserved for storage and deliveries. It was a dark, cold place with narrow staircases and countless boxes piled high. The idea of someone trapped, or worse, there was terrifying. Gathering my courage, I approached Anna. "We need to call security. It might just be a shopper who got lost or something." She shook her head vehemently. "No, Lucas." Felt different. It sounded real. Before we could decide what to do, the lights in the main floor flickered, plunging us into temporary darkness. When they returned, the atmosphere had changed. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant hum of the store's machinery. Suddenly, Frau Schneider appeared at the entrance, her face pale and her eyes filled with worry. "We have to close now. Everyone, please leave immediately. There's been an incident in the basement." Fear gripped my heart as the realization sank in. An incident? What kind of incident could occur in a place like ours, especially on Christmas Eve? Anna and I followed Frau Schneider down the familiar staircase to the basement. The air grew colder with each step, the faint sound of dripping water echoing through the cavernous space. The basement was a maze of shelves and storage units, the dim lighting casting long shadows that danced ominously on the walls. As we navigated through the clutter, the sense of unease intensified. The screams had stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence that felt almost suffocating. We reached the center of the basement, where a large storage room stood. The door was ajar, and a flickering light inside hinted at something moving within. Frau Schneider pushed the door open cautiously, and we stepped inside. The room was empty, save for a few scattered boxes and old Christmas decorations. The light above was unstable, casting ghostly patterns on the floor. My eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of movement, but there was nothing, only the lingering echo of those horrifying screams. Suddenly, Anna gasped. "Look! There!" In the far corner of the room stood the shadow of a child, a small, ethereal figure with hollow eyes and a look of pure terror. The figure began to move, gliding towards us with an unnatural grace. My blood ran cold as I realized it was a child. Yet there was something deeply wrong about its presence. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. "What do you want?" The apparition paused, its eyes meeting mine. A deep sorrow emanated from its gaze, and I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness and loss, pointed towards an old, forgotten corner of the basement, where an ancient box lay hidden beneath a pile of debris. Frau Schneider stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "That's where the boy was last seen. In 1935, a young boy named Johann disappeared here on Christmas Eve. Despite extensive searches, he was never found. Some say his spirit never left." I approached the box, my hands shaking as I reached out to open it. Inside, I found a bundle of old, faded photographs and a small, tattered diary. The diary belonged to Johann himself, detailing his love for Christmas and his excitement to help his parents set up decorations in the basement. But as the entries progressed, the tone darkened. Johann wrote about strange noises, shadows moving in the corners of his vision, and a feeling of being watched. The last entry was the most chilling. "Tonight, I heard a scream that pierced my very soul. I followed the sound to the old storage room, but when I got there was nothing. I'm scared. Please, if something happens to me, remember me." A cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering light above. We were plunged into darkness, the silence now broken by the sound of heavy breathing and soft, distant whispers. The child's shadow reappeared, moving closer with each passing second. Frau Schneider grabbed my arm, her face pale. "We need to leave. Now." But as we turned to flee, the basement doors slammed shut, locking us inside. Panic set in as the whispers grew louder, the air thick with an unseen presence. The child's shadow loomed over us, its expression one of pleading desperation. "Help me," it whispered, the words echoing through the confined space. "Set me free." Desperate to escape, I frantically searched the room for another exit. But the doors remained immovable. Anna and I stood frozen, the weight of Johann's sorrow pressing down on us. Suddenly, the air shifted, and the basement began to tremble. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows twisting into grotesque shapes that reached out to us. In a moment of clarity, I remembered the last words of Johann's diary. "Remember me," realizing that acknowledgement was the key to freeing his spirit. I spoke aloud, my voice strong despite the fear. "We remember you, Johann. We honor your memory." The basement trembled violently, the shadows recoiling as if pushed back by an unseen force. The child's shadow began to fade, its expression softening into one of peace. The doors creaked open, the oppressive darkness lifting as light once again filled the room. We stumbled out of the basement, gasping for breath as the storm outside intensified. The snow continued to fall, the howling wind a stark contrast to the eerie calm that had settled over the store. Frau Schneider looked at us with a mixture of relief and sadness. "Thank you," she whispered. "He's finally at peace." In the days that followed, the incidents at Kaufhaus and Marienplatz ceased. The store returned to its festive routine. the tragic history of Johann a somber reminder of the past. But the memory of that night lingered, a haunting echo in my mind that I couldn't easily forget. Years later, I still walk past the spot where Johann's shadow once stood, the snow gently falling around me. Sometimes, in the quiet of winter, I can almost hear the faint whispers of his voice, a lingering reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. The story of Johann Fischer became a local legend, a chilling tale that served as a reminder of the unresolved pain that can linger long after tragedy strikes. Because in the heart of winter, amidst the silent snow and the lingering shadows, the echoes of the past continue to resonate, forever a part of the Kaufhaus am Marienplatz, waiting for someone to remember their stories and help them find their way to eternal peace.